Before India drew the Ajna chakra, Africa opened the eye of spirit. In the deep stillness of sacred groves, in the rhythm of chants rising on the starlit skies, in the unbroken lineage of seers, healers, and diviners, Africa saw. Not with flesh, but with light. Not with the physical eye, but with the one that opens in silence. The one that dreams. The one that remembers. This was not mysticism dressed in metaphor. It was knowledge. It was science. It was technology, refined not in labs, but in lineages. The third eye was not a symbol to be imagined. It was a faculty to be trained. A gateway to spirit, to memory, to truth. Before Ajna had a Sanskrit name, before yogis traced it across their foreheads, there were babalawos in trance, Maasai elders in meditation, and Dogon, initiates to reading the sky with their souls. Africa was not just aware of the inner eye, she mastered it. From the sands of Kemet to the forests of the Congo, from the mountains of Ethiopia to the deserts of Somalia, the ability to see beyond matter was embedded into daily life, ritual, and identity. It was how kings ruled, how healers diagnosed, how warriors walked with clarity. We are told that the third eye belongs to the east, to India, to Tibet, to the mystics of the Himalayas. But what if that story is incomplete? What if the first eye that opened was African? This is the story of the eye. Africa never closed. A story older than Sanskrit, older than the Veda, older than Asia itself. A continent whose sight was never limited to the visible, because it always knew vision is not what we see. It is what sees through us. Yoruba Ojú Inú, the eye inside. In the spiritual heart of the Yoruba people, sight has never been confined to what the eyes can capture. The true eye, they say, is not on the face, it is within. This inner vision is called Ojú Inú, the eye inside. In Yoruba cosmology, Ojú Inú is more than a metaphor. It is a sacred organ of perception. It sees what cannot be seen. It knows what has not yet happened. The Babalawo, priest of Ifa, does not gaze outward to find answers. He closes his physical eyes and opens the spiritual one. Guided by chants, invocations, and the sacred divination chain known as Opele, the Babalawo enters a trance state. In that stillness, he communes with Orunmila, the Orisha of wisdom, destiny, and foresight. Orunmila is the keeper of all memory, the one who sees every soul's path, every choice, every possibility. Through him, the Babalawo deciphers the verses of Odu Ifa, not by guessing, but by seeing it. This sight is used for healing, for warning, for aligning lives with purpose. In Yoruba worldview, blindness is not just the absence of physical sight. It is disconnection from inner clarity. One who lacks Ojú Inú may see the world but never understand it. To open this eye inside is not a luxury. It is the foundation of wisdom, the key to survival. Igbo Anya Mmuo, the spirit eye. Across the Niger River, among the Igbo people, the third eye is known as Anya Mmuo, the spirit eye. It is the gift of those called Dibia, seers trained to pierce the veil between the visible and invisible worlds. This sight does not depend on light, but on spirit, on silence, on dreams, on invocation. During sacred divination, Dibia use mirrors and kola nuts to open portals of perception. The mirror, when placed in water or in shadow, reflects not the body, but the beyond. Images emerge not from the glass, but from the spirit realm. The split of a kola nut is read not for its shape alone, but for the sacred story it tells. A story only Anya Mmuo can interpret. Igbo cosmology describes two worlds, Uwa, the physical, and Uwa Mmuo, the spirit. Seers with Anya Mmuo navigate both. They see the shadows of truth the movement of ancestral forces, the spiritual weight behind illness, conflict, or blessing. Their vision becomes guidance, prophecy, a roadmap from the ancestors to the living. To the Igbo, true sight is not passive. It is action rooted in wisdom. It is what allows a person to walk through this world with grace and prepare for the next. For the Akan people of Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire, the third eye exists in the Sunsum, the spiritual essence that lives within every human being. The Sunsum is not the soul itself, but its emissary. It is the part of you that walks with you, sees for you, speaks from within. Priests and seers in Akan tradition undergo deep training to access Sunsum. Through rituals involving dance, drumming, fire, and trance, they learn to project their Sunsum beyond the body, to commune with the ancestors, receive visions, and interpret the movements of fate. The eye here is not in the forehead. It pulses in the body. It hums in the chest. It lives in the ancestral bloodline. Visions come as flashes, clear, sudden, undeniable. A warning before war, a message before birth. Sunsum is not only a means of sight, it is a communication system between the realms. For the Akan, to lose touch with your Sunsum is to lose your compass. A person without vision is a person without spiritual direction. But a seer whose Sunsum is awake walks with power. Among the nomadic Fulani, known also as Pule, the third eye is quiet. It has no ritual name, no dramatic ceremony. It is called Kina, the deep, inner knowing. It is the intuition of the elder, the unspoken wisdom of the herd keeper, the silent sense that something is coming long before it arrives. Kina is not taught through doctrine. It is lived, inherited, observed. A grandmother feels sickness in the air, a child dreams of fire and wakes to find it burning on the edge of the village. A father feels a danger before he sees it. This is Kina, the third eye as instinct. It is not vision in the mystical sense, but in the moral sense. Kina guides choices. It warns, protects, prevents. It may never produce a vision, but it always produces clarity. Among the Fulani, Kina is seen as a mark of maturity, a sign that one is spiritually balanced. The wisest are not the loudest, but those who know without needing to explain how. And finally, we reach the Dogon of Mali, guardians of a cosmic vision that has mystified scholars for generations. These are the people who spoke of Sirius B, a star invisible to the naked eye, centuries before any telescope confirmed its existence. They described its density, its orbit, its twin. But they did not learn this from books. They saw it with a different eye. The Dogon cultivate this cosmic sight through the Sigi initiation, a sacred process that unfolds over 60 years. Initiates are taught to read vibration, not just light, to listen to the pulse beneath matter, to dream the sky. Their cosmology teaches that the universe is sound, rhythm, harmony. To perceive it, one must become quiet enough inside to hear. The third eye in Dogon thought is not simply about insight, it is about resonance. Their temples mirror the stars. Their masks echo the orbits of celestial bodies. Their dances align with the heartbeat of the galaxy. For the Dogon, blindness is not the absence of vision. It is disconnection from cosmic order. True sight is not external. It is the inner capacity to see through time, space, and illusion, and return with understanding. Across West Africa, the third eye was never a novelty. It was a necessity, a way of knowing, a tool of survival, a bridge between the living and the ancestral, the sane and the unseen. It had many names: Ojú Inú, Anya Mmuo, Sunsum, Kina, but one purpose: to awaken the part of us that has always seen and never forgotten. In the spiritual systems of Central Africa, the third eye is not an abstraction. It is ritual, rhythm, and revelation. It appears in patterns etched in sacred diagrams, in flames that flicker during ancestor rites, in clay smeared across the brow, and in the hands of those who remember. In this region, the inner eye is not imagined. It is trained, initiated, activated through acts of deep tradition and sacred science. Among the Congo people, the inner eye is known as Lusolo, illumination from within. Lusolo is not poetic. It is a force. It is the light of consciousness, a radiance that shines from behind the forehead, guiding the soul across realms. To understand Lusolo, one must understand the Congo cosmogram, or Dikenga, a sacred cross enclosed in a circle, drawn in the soil or carved into ritual objects. This cosmogram is not just a spiritual symbol, it is a full map of consciousness. Each quadrant represents a phase: sunrise and birth, noon and life, sunset and death, midnight and rebirth. The vertical axis connects the living and the dead, while the horizontal marks the passage of time. The cosmogram is the portal through which Lusolo shines. When Nganga, a Congo spiritual specialist, begins a vision ritual, they do not see in the Western sense. Instead, they feel the pulse of the cosmogram. Through trance, chanting, smoke, and spiritual invocation, the Nganga enters a liminal space where Lusolo activates like a beacon. In this state, messages come not in speech, but in image, not in logic, but in presence. The eye opens, and through it, the entire lineage speaks. For the Luba people, inner vision is royal technology. Sight is not only mystical, it is political. The Luba kings and diviners are trained to perceive destiny using tools of memory and spirit. At the heart of this tradition is the Lukasa, a sacred memory board filled with beads, carvings, and symbols. To the untrained, it is artwork, but to the initiated, the Lukasa is a living archive. Each bump and line holds stories, wars, wisdom, decisions. To use the Lukasa, one must engage not only memory but intuition. The seer or king runs their fingers across its surface, and as they touch each bead, visions awaken. Stories uncoil. Patterns emerge. This is the Luba's third eye in action, not centered in the skull, but alive in the hands, in the spirit, in the body's knowing. The kings undergo years of foresight training to develop this perception. To rule without inner sight is to lead in blindness. Among the Luba, leadership is vision, and vision begins within. In Londa tradition, the opening of the inner eye takes on a strikingly earthy form. Before sacred ceremonies, clay is anointed onto the forehead of the initiate. This clay is not mere earth. It is mixed with herbs, chants, intention. It is a sacred interface between the physical and the spiritual. As it is pressed onto the skin, it becomes a spiritual key. The clay dries, tightens, seals. The initiate closes their eyes, but something else begins to see. This ritual is the symbolic unlocking of perception, the awakening of spiritual awareness through the substance of the land. For the Lunda, the eye of truth opens not with light, but with earth. The seers say, the clay knows. And through that clay, the ancestors whisper through the forehead, not in words, but in heat, pressure, and sudden knowing. Further west, deep within the equatorial forests, the Fan people hold one of the most powerful inner eye initiation systems on the continent, the Biwiti tradition. Biwiti is not merely religion. It is a full spiritual technology for activating the soul. It is known as the path through the veil. Initiates undergo ceremonies involving music, fire, storytelling, and often the sacred use of plant medicine, which induces expanded states of consciousness. In these states, the third eye opens with brilliance. Initiates speak of seeing ancestral spirits, glowing geometric landscapes, and rivers of memory flowing between worlds. The sight activated here is not metaphorical. It is multidimensional. One is taught to see the geography of spirit, the architecture of the afterlife, the symbolic structures of truth. In Fang cosmology, to walk through life with the third eye closed is to live half-blind. Buiti makes the unseen visible, and the initiate becomes a guide for others lost in illusion. And among the Mbundu of Angola, vision arrives through flame. During ancestral rites, fires are lit. And it is said that when the flame burns unnaturally, the ancestors are near. Healers sit before the fire, silent, meditative, touching their forehead as if tuning a signal. The Mbundu call this the eye in the ancestral flame. It is not literal fire, but a sensation, a burning awareness that rises through the forehead when spirit is present. Visions here do not scream, they flicker. Faces not yet known, voices long silenced. The third eye burns not with color, but with presence. The Mbundu do not separate vision from the ancestors. When the forehead stirs, when the heat comes, it is understood. The old ones are watching and speaking. In Central Africa, the third eye is not a fantasy borrowed from the East. It is a native technology. It is remembered in cosmograms, read through Lukasa boards, sealed in forehead clay, activated by forest ritual, and summoned by sacred flame. These are not fragments of imagination. They are systems, coherent, tested, and alive. Across Congo, Luba, Lunda, Fang, and Mbundu lands, the eye has always been open, watching, guiding, remembering. And through these traditions, it continues to see. In the lands where the Nile flows like an artery of spirit, from the deserts of Egypt to the highlands of Ethiopia, the third eye was never symbolic. It was sacred sovereignty, divine perception, and a cosmic technology older than language itself. In North and Northeast Africa, spiritual sight was worn on crowns, inscribed in temples, and practiced in silence. It was not borrowed from the East. It was born here in the oldest civilizations known to humanity. In Kemet, the land we now call ancient Egypt, the third eye was royalty itself. Not hidden, not metaphorical, but blazoned openly on the foreheads of kings and queens in the form of the Uraeus, the sacred serpent rising from the brow. This was more than regalia. The Uraeus symbolized the activation of divine consciousness, the awakening of the eye of Ra within the human soul. It was both a weapon and a vision, a sign of those who had pierced illusion and now ruled with spiritual sight. Kemetic mysticism taught that within the head lies the Benben stone, the spiritual seat of transformation, known today as the pineal gland. This Benben in man was activated through ritual, sound, and sacred geometry. Egyptian temple walls spoke of inner initiations, trials through darkness, rebirth in light, and the unlocking of sight beyond the senses. Long before India spoke of kundalini, Kemet had already encoded its knowledge in the coiled Uraeus and its rise along the spine to the brow. Priests, healers, and architects of the soul trained for years to open this inner sun. The third eye was not a mere chakra. It was divine rulership earned through clarity, wisdom, and inner fire. To the south, in the golden kingdom of Kush, now Sudan, the serpent crown continued. Kings of Nubia also wore the Uraeus, affirming their inherited power not just from Egypt, but from a deeper African source. In Kushite spiritual texts and oral traditions, one finds references to the inner sun, a living flame that illuminates the mind from within. This light was described as eternal, ancestral, and cosmic. Kushite mystics believed that true vision came not from stars or scrolls, but from this internal fire. During rituals in desert sanctuaries and temple caves, seers would sit in darkness to find that which glows without light, the sun of the spirit. This inner sun was not seen with the eyes, but felt in the bones. It was the power to lead, to heal, to remember who one is. Kemet may have given the third eye its most famous symbol, but Kush preserved its flame through wisdom passed down not in papyrus but in presence, lineage, and silence. Further east, across the Ethiopian highlands, the tradition of inner vision evolved into a deeply mystical practice rooted in fasting, prayer, and quiet contemplation. Among Ethiopian mystics, the third eye is not spoken of in anatomical terms, but in emotional ones. It is known as the eye of the heart, iron lip. Here, vision is received, not forced. The initiate does not chase light, but enters stillness. Through days of silence, nights of inward chanting, and deep immersion in sacred scripture, the mystics of Ethiopia awaken a perception that flows through humility and surrender. They describe visions not in vivid color, but in waves of knowing, in inner peace so sharp it becomes sight. For Ethiopian Christian mystics, influenced by ancient Judaic traditions and early Coptic Christianity, the forehead becomes a resting place for divine presence. The eye of the heart is the soul's window, opening slowly as ego dissolves. It is the eye that sees grace, truth, and destiny all at once. And in Eritrea, bordering both Ethiopia and the Red Sea, the tradition of the third eye takes yet another form, one rooted in both ancient Sufi and early Christian mysticism. Here, in the silence of desert retreats and mountain monasteries, mystics spoke of the gate of light, an energetic center in the forehead that pulses during deep prayer and fasting. To open this gate of light was to become a receiver of divine rhythm. Sufi mystics of Eritrea combined chanting, breathwork, and movement to induce visionary states, where the world dissolved and only light remained. Christian hermits too practiced fasting in caves, often alone for weeks, reporting radiant visions emerging from within the skull, a burning awareness that was not hallucination, but communion. In these sacred spaces, the body became a vessel, the brow a threshold, and silence a ladder to the unseen. The third eye was not externalized through symbols. It was interiorized through devotion. Across North and Northeast Africa, the third eye was never just spiritual. It was cosmic memory, divine power, and disciplined perception. Whether seen rising as the Uraeus of Egypt, glowing as the inner sun of Kush, heard in the prayers of Ethiopian monks, or pulsing through the gate of light in Eritrea, this vision guided civilization. It shaped leadership, shaped ethics, shaped destiny. These traditions did not look east to find awakening. They looked inward and found the light already burning. The third eye was not waiting to be discovered. It had been open since the beginning. And through these ancient paths, it remains so, watching, waiting, shining through time. In the vast and soul-rich lands of Southern Africa, the third eye is not confined to one name or one ritual. It lives in the drums, the bones, the breath, and the stars. It appears in the dance of healers, the wisdom of elders, the stillness of caves, and the shimmer of sacred waters under moonlight. Here, vision is a vibration. Something felt as much as seen, passed through spirit rather than declared in doctrine. The region is a living archive of the inner eye, encoded in the traditions of the Zulu, Xhosa, Soto, Tswana, San, and Venda peoples. Among the Zulu, the gift of inner sight is called Ukubona Ngamahalo Angafakati, seeing with the inner eyes. This is not poetic language. It is the foundation of the Zulu healing tradition. Sangomas, spiritual healers, and diviners do not read futures from books or stars. They listen with their bones and see with their spirit. The Sangoma enters trance through rhythmic drumming, invocation, and the sacred practice of ukolola, where bones are thrown and meaning is revealed through ancestral guidance. This guidance does not come in flashes of light, but in deep knowing, in shivers down the spine, in words that rise unbidden during trance. Sangomas describe visions that appear in the space behind the eyes, where the ancestors speak. To them, the third eye is not a chakra, it is a channel, a direct line to those who walked before and still walk beside us. In neighboring Xhosa culture, the inner eye takes on a slightly different form, spoken of by initiates as the third head. This is not metaphor. It is believed to be a spiritual center located behind the brow, activated during initiation rites for diviners known as Amazigh Eye. These diviners undergo intense training that includes dream interpretation, trance dancing, and wilderness solitude. Practices designed to awaken this hidden head that sees without looking. The third head becomes a center for vision, wisdom, and healing. Through it, the diviner accesses ancestral realms, deciphers illness, and restores balance. When the third head opens, it is said the initiate no longer sees the world. The world begins to see through them. For the Soto and Tswana peoples, the third eye is deeply intertwined with the concept of seriti, the shining life force. Seriti is the luminous presence that surrounds a person. It is not seen with the eyes, but perceived with the soul. Those who are spiritually awakened can see seriti like an aura, a glowing essence that reflects a person's truth, integrity, and destiny. To perceive someone's seriti is to witness their spiritual blueprint. Elders and healers use this inner eye to determine the moral path of individuals, to diagnose imbalance, or to recognize potential. Seriti is not just a symbol of status. It is a spiritual fingerprint, visible only through the refined sight of the heart and soul. Among the San people, the oldest continuous culture on earth, the third eye is as ancient as the desert itself. Known by many names in the various Khoisan dialects, the San activate their inner sight during trance dances, powerful communal rituals that involve hours of singing, stomping, and hyperventilated breath. As the energy builds, the healers fall into trance, their consciousness shifts, and they begin to see with the inside of the head. In this state, the San describe traveling to the spirit world, not metaphorically but actually journeying. They report encounters with animals, ancestors, and healing forces. The visions are vivid, full-bodied, and emotionally charged. For the San, this inner sight is not a gift given to a few, but a faculty that belongs to all humans, waiting to be awakened through ritual, community, and ecstasy. And in the lush highlands and lakes of Venda territory, the third eye is understood through a concept called Mupo, cosmic alignment, the divine order of the universe. Venda seers do not just seek visions, they align themselves with cosmic rhythm through sacred night rituals, drumming, and communion with ancestral waters. At the heart of this practice are sacred lakes, places believed to be doorways between the physical and the spiritual realms. During ceremonies under moonlight, seers sit in silence or chant by the water's edge. The stillness reflects not only the moon, but the truth within. They say that when the mind is quiet enough, the lake becomes a mirror, and in it, visions arrive. The third eye here is not fire or light, but depth and stillness, like the lake itself. Across southern Africa, these traditions weave a powerful truth. That vision is not what the eyes capture, but what the soul receives. Whether through the bone-throwing trance of the Zulu, the secret third head of the Xhosa, the glowing seriti of the Soto, the ecstatic travels of the San, or the cosmic alignments of the Vende, the inner eye is alive. It speaks through rhythm, ritual, and reverence. It remembers the old stories, it heals, it warns, guides. The third eye in Southern Africa is not lost. It is simply waiting for us to remember how to see again. In the sacred winds of the Horn of Africa, vision is not pursued in noise. It is born in silence, in stillness, and in the vastness of desert breath. Here among the Somali, Djiboutian, and Eritrean mystics, the third eye is known through discipline, through devotion, and through the elemental wisdom of earth and sky. This is a region where inner sight is not chanted aloud, but inhaled, where the unseen world emerges only when the outer one dissolves. Among the Somali Sufi mystics, the third eye is cultivated through sacred practices of dhikr, the rhythmic chanting of divine names, combined with precise breathing, swaying, and inward concentration. In long night vigils, these mystics repeat the names of God until the mind is emptied, the body forgotten, and only the soul remains. In this place of pure inwardness, they describe a mysterious phenomenon, the disappearance of the external world. In that void, visions come of light, symbols, ancestral teachers, and cosmic truths. This experience is not metaphorical, it is deeply sensory, deeply real. The Somali mystics call it the inner gaze, the sight that awakens when all else fades. In this tradition, the third eye is not spoken of with diagrams or theory, but with poetry and experience. It is described as the moment when the soul turns its face to the real. Farther inland, in the arid and mystical spaces of Djibouti and Eritrea, nomadic mystics have long practiced desert vision traditions. These involve extended fasts under the sun, isolation from all distraction, and surrender to the burning silence of the land. The desert, they say, has a voice, and it speaks only when all other voices fall away. Seers in these traditions report visions that rise not from within the mind, but from the heat itself. Images shaped by wind, sun, and solitude. They describe the forehead pulsing, glowing with heat that is more than physical. It is the opening of a gate, an entrance into worlds just behind the veil. In the Horn of Africa, the third eye is not unlocked through study. It is revealed through endurance, devotion, and the embrace of emptiness. In the sacred rhythms of East Africa, the third eye reveals itself not just in visions of light, but in the clarity of moral purpose, the weight of ancestral duty, and the quiet knowing passed down from the oldest spirits. In these lands, from the high plains of Kenya and Tanzania to the ancient kingdoms of Uganda and the river-fed soils of Sudan, the inner eye lives not as a symbol, but as a practice woven into the daily life of seers, warriors, and healers. Among the Maasai of Kenya and northern Tanzania, the inner eye is known as Enkanit, a deep intuitive sense of moral clarity. It is said that Enkanit awakens not only through spiritual devotion, but through warrior initiation, silence, and reflection. Maasai elders teach that true vision does not come from looking outward, but from knowing deeply what is right and true. This inner vision is sharpened during the rites of passage that transform young men into Moran, the warrior class. Meditation in nature, solo fasting, and oral wisdom passed down in sacred circles all serve to open the internal space where Enkanit resides. A warrior with Enkanit does not just fight, he feels truth before it is spoken, sees injustice before it is revealed. The third eye in this worldview is the compass of the soul, ensuring that strength is guided by wisdom. Among the Xhosa of central Tanzania, one of the last hunter-gatherer societies on earth, the inner eye is awakened through vision healing dances. These nocturnal rituals, marked by rhythmic stomping, clapping, and breath synchronization, bring the community into heightened states of connection. In these sacred dances, healers enter trance, and in that state they say they can see with the inward light, Visions appear of ancestors, animals, illnesses, and even future dangers. The Xhosa do not separate physical healing from spiritual sight. They are one and the same. A healer who cannot see with the spirit cannot heal with the hand. In Uganda, particularly among the Buganda people, the inner eye is known through the practices of spirit mediums who serve as bridges between the living and the Balub Ale, the ancestral gods and deified spirits. These mediums enter trance states through drumming, chanting, and incense, allowing the bodies to become vessels. In this state, visions arise, messages from ancestors, signs of coming events, and warnings from the spiritual realm. These are not symbolic gestures. They are functional communications, respected by the community and used to guide political and personal decisions. In Sudan, among the Nuer and Dinka peoples, the third eye lives in the traditions of the prophets, spiritual leaders who receive guidance not through books, but through direct visionary experience. They speak of seeing without eyes, where dreams, silence, and divine contact converge into messages from Nialik, the Supreme Spirit. These prophets are not self-proclaimed. They are chosen, often through mysterious episodes of sickness, isolation, or spontaneous vision. Once awakened, their role is to interpret cosmic will, mediate conflict, and protect harmony. Across East Africa, the third eye is not abstract or decorative. It is the center of spiritual responsibility. It guides warriors, empowers healers, inspires mediums, and speaks through prophets. It is the flame that lights truth before action. The path of sight here is sacred, and those who walk it become guardians of both memory and future. In the windswept mountains and desert valleys of North Africa, the Amazigh, also known as Babas, have preserved one of the oldest and most enduring third eye traditions on earth. A legacy etched not in scrolls, but in skin, silver, and memory. For the Amazigh, the Eye of Knowledge is not merely a symbol of protection. It is a declaration of inner awareness, spiritual perception, and a constant, watchful connection to the unseen. This sacred eye is woven into tattoos worn by women, often on the forehead, chin, or hands, each mark holding power, story, and sight. The forehead tattoos, in particular, serve as more than cultural ornamentation. They mark the opening of inner vision, a spiritual awakening recognized by the community. Passed down from mother to daughter, these symbols represent generations of wisdom keepers who read the world with their intuition as much as with their eyes. In Amazigh jewelry too, the eye appears, often surrounded by geometric patterns representing universal order, ancestral guardians, and cosmic balance. These adornments are not only beautiful, but function as talismans, tuning the wearer to the spiritual field and protecting them from unseen harm. They remind the bearer that sight is not just what is seen, but what is known. The Eye of Knowledge stands as both mirror and shield, reflecting truth and deflecting illusion. It teaches that to see clearly is to live rightly. In a world that has often tried to erase indigenous ways of knowing, the Amazigh have carried this symbol across centuries, unbroken, unbent. Here in the sands and stones of North Africa, the third eye is not remembered. It's never closed. It has watched the world through silence, spirit, and the wisdom of the ancestors, and it still sees. From west to east, from north to south, across deserts, rivers, mountains, and sacred forests, Africa has always seen. She saw long before the telescopes, before the diagrams, before Ajna had a name. She saw with bones and breath, with stars and drums, with silence and spirit. Across every region, the third eye appeared in 1,000 names. Ojú Inú, Anya Mmuo, Sunsum, Enkanyit, Luzolo, Uraeus, and more. But all whispered the same truth. Sight is not the work of the eyes. It is the light of the soul. Where the world today speaks of pineal glands and chakras, Africa spoke of dream walkers, soul seers, spirit guides, and ancestral mirrors. Here, the third eye was not a trend, nor a mystic metaphor. It was a living tool, a way of knowing, guiding, healing. It was royalty in Kemet, fire in Kush, rhythm in the sun, and stillness by sacred lakes in Venda. It was breath in Somalia, light in Ethiopia, and wisdom etched in Amazigh's skin. And through all of it, Africa never stopped singing. This is not simply history. It is a spiritual cartography that maps how deeply Africa's people have traveled, not only across continents, but across dimensions of consciousness. The Ajna is not India's gift to the world. It is a memory echoing from Africa, where the gateway to the soul was opened through discipline, devotion, and ancestral connection. To reclaim this story is to reclaim the truth, that Africa did not wait for wisdom to arrive. She authored it, protected it, and embodied it. So now, as the world awakens again, as we remember the old ways through new eyes, let this not be another forgotten fact. Let it be a movement of remembering. Like this video so the algorithm can help the world see what was hidden. Comment below. Africa opened the eye first. Subscribe to History Store, where Africa remembers what the world forgot.